He goes, I've written 70 new accounts in the last 2 years. I'm like, how? And he said, there's nothing more powerful to go into a room with a prospect and say, we just work with you. You guys, what I love about the niche you guys have built, and this actually blew me away when I heard this. How many clients do you have right now in the final mile space?
Probably 2,000 or so.
That's insane. You know, because I think a lot of people in our industry say, well, I have a niche, right? And then you dig into the books and like, oh, you have a dozen. Okay, great. You guys have thousands.
Correct.
But what's interesting, and we've talked about this offline, it's actually put a target on your back.
Yeah.
What's that experience been like? Because we could argue in the final mile space, you guys are the name recognition in many ways. What has that been like now that you've got other organizations who are trying to replicate or even trying to come after you? Because you are now the big boys.
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate because I think, who's going to suffer is unfortunately the clients, right? I mean, because in order to compete, they don't have the data to support creating a program that is properly constructed in terms of coverage, properly priced to be sustainable and sustain losses over a long period of time. So again, many of these programs that are coming out, their only way to counter what we've done all these years is, price. What we can save you, X percent. And
the way they're getting the price down is cutting out product coverage.
Yep.
Right. That's the only mechanism in the insurance space from an underwriter's perspective to, I'll give you a discounted price, but it also means I'm not going to give you the same coverage. And I think people are getting caught up at the price factor.
Yep.
And not the coverage itself.
But I think that's a message I want people who are listening to this to hear. You could say you have an industry niche because you have a certain product, right? Oh, we're working with this carrier who loves this niche. What you guys have done, and the problem with that model is then anybody can get access to that carrier. Once they do, you don't have a niche anymore. You don't have a competitive advantage, right? So what you guys did though is you've actually built coverage specific for that industry.
Yes.
And to your point, you're a competitor, you want to come in and chip away at the B3 client, the book of business. All you can compete on is price, but what you're forgetting is they built coverage specifically for the final mile space. So you can go get that price, Mr. Final Mile Courier.
Yep.
But now you could be dealing with a complete lack of coverage. I've got to believe you've had a bunch of opportunities to go outside the niche. Have you really tried to stay focused, even if other opportunities present themselves, to stay within your lane, your zone of genius?
Well, yeah, I don't think we've even had the time. I mean, again, with the evolution and the constant evolving of the industry, we've had to continue to evolve with the industry. And again, I think, there's commissions and this is how we earn a living, but we actually truly care about the industry because, again, if this program goes away, it could be detrimental to the entire industry.
That's I think, an important, I would love your advice, Bryan, is, it's one thing to say you have a niche, right? But you guys have done so much work around the niche of building a program specifically for it that's led to having more than 2,000 clients. If you were to give another producer a piece of advice who wants to niche, what would you be with all the work you guys have put in for 20 plus years in building a niche? What would be your advice?
If you're a relationship person, it's the only way that you're going to be successful for a long time in the insurance space. That's just a feeling I have. And probably because that's how we've lived our whole careers. But I think that when you're in a niche and you're in it, your ability to understand the client and what their needs are and try to, again, stay ahead of where they're evolving to provide them the right advice, the right coverage, the right direction is huge. And you don't get that unless you're living that and breathing it every single day. I mean, one of the greatest things about us is we have the ability to hear from clients nationwide that are doing all sorts of different verticals within Final Mile, and be able to apply what we learned from one to the other and see, okay, this happened over here. That's great. How do we stop that from happening over this way? How does you advise them? So it gives us the ability to talk to clients, and they really truly know we're their outsourced risk management. We're not just selling a product. We're giving them advice all the time on how do we avoid claims? Because look, you could have $1 million claims and have coverage. Just as easily, they could have a ton of little cargo claims that nickel and dime them to death. It's just death by 1,000 cuts versus a huge loss.
Well, and I still remember when I was catching up with a friend of mine about a year ago who was working for an agency similar that they just did benefits and P&C for the auto dealer industry, auto dealers, motorcycle. And I remember catching up with them and saying, hey, how are things going, man? He's like, dude, it's been the best 2-year run of my life. I said, how? He goes, I've written 70 new accounts in the last 2 years. I'm like, how? And he said, there's nothing more powerful to go into a room with a prospect and say, we just work with you.
But not only that, but we also become experts in our own industry. We understand policy forms. I mean, again, another credit to my father, he's a technician. He was a former inland marine underwriter, cargo underwriter for Chubb in his early days. And that's what, he's really held his hat on is developing the best, the broadest, the most user-friendly and the easiest to understand coverage in the industry. Because again, we can sit up there proudly say that in the last 30 plus years, we've never had a major loss that was uncovered.